My 29F parents ghosted me 5 years ago after my wedding, and now reached out. What do I do? My husband, 30M, used to be my boss. About 9 years ago, I started working as his assistant. We spent 2.5 years ignoring our mutual attraction until we gave in. We then went to HR, who reassigned me, and the whole thing was strictly above board from the time we began dating. I then got pregnant about a year later, and my husband and I decided to just get married. While we had only really been dating for 1.5 years, we knew each other completely, loved each other, lived together, and there was a baby on the way. We knew how it would look, but I had to leave the company anyway due to problems with my new boss, so we didn't anticipate this causing any issues, except with my parents. They, 62M and 57F, have always been overprotective, so I knew they wouldn't like me dating my boss, and I hadn't told them, but I had to tell them if I wanted them at my wedding. We decided to be mostly honest with them about how it was strictly professional until it wasn't, how the second it got unprofessional, we went to HR, how he had never taken advantage of me, but now we wanted to get married and we wanted them there. We did not mention the baby because I felt that giving them that information in addition to the rest all at once would just break them. I was only 4 months along when the wedding happened, so the bump was easily hidden by a flowy dress. The wedding itself went off without a hitch, and apart from my mother pulling me into the bathroom shortly before the ceremony to ask if I was sure about this, which I said I was, my parents seemed to take it well. The ceremony and reception were at 2 different venues, and we had to travel from one to the other, and my parents never arrived at the reception. I called them and got ignored, and then my brother called them, and they told him that they were going home. I don't remember the exact reason they gave, but it amounted to them being tired and uncomfortable. I tried contacting them after the wedding, but found that I was blocked on everything except email, which I used to send them a long letter essentially saying that I'm an adult who made an adult choice, and I hope they can respect that. 5 years later, I have not heard from my parents since my wedding. My husband and I are not big on social media in general, but I recently posted something for our 5th anniversary, in which I mentioned our 2 kids and third on the way. Within a month of making this post, my parents left a voicemail saying they saw the post and having had no idea that they had grandchildren previously, now wanted to meet them. I haven't responded, and there have been a few follow-ups since then asking why I haven't. I don't know what to do, but my gut instinct is that 5 years is too long, and it's about the kids, not about them respecting my choices or relationship. However, I can't help but feel that I'm being unfair, and my brother agrees because I told them in my email that if they could learn to respect my choice in my marriage eventually, then we could talk, and now I'm retroactively applying a time limit. Edit. I can't find a way to work this in organically, but my husband is not white. I am, as are my parents. I don't think this is a race thing or that my parents are racist, and neither does my husband, and we don't understand why they would want to meet our mixed-raced children if they were racist. But this element is still gnawing at me. Should I reach out to them? If I did, how would we go about rebuilding the relationship? Update. I asked to talk yesterday. We were on Zoom within an hour. It was my parents and me and my husband. They asked to see the kids, and I said they could see them eventually, dependent on them earning our trust and convincing us they were going to be positive additions to the kids' lives. They asked to start by reading me a letter that they claimed to have written on my wedding day. It said that they were uncomfortable with me marrying my former boss as they thought he took advantage of me, so they left between the wedding and reception to avoid a scene. But they wanted me to know they were here for me despite their issues with him. They added that they would have sent this to me the morning after my wedding, but then I sent my email about them needing to respect my choices, and they were so ashamed that they couldn't bring themselves to send theirs. Seeing my anniversary post made them realize how much they've missed in 5 years, and they really don't want to miss anymore. I had some questions, like what the big deal was with me marrying my former boss, and they said it just wasn't what they had in mind for my wedding day and my future spouse. I asked why they even came to the wedding at all if they didn't support the marriage, and my dad responded that he wanted to walk his daughter down the aisle as it was the only chance he'd get. The way it was phrased implied that they had intentionally only come to the wedding so he could give me away, and always planned to leave halfway, and because he said, "my daughter," and didn't talk to me directly, it was pretty clear he was thinking about my older sister who passed away. My husband caught that too and said that if they were talking about me, they should address me directly. Then added that if they had planned to leave, they should have told us, as we wouldn't have invited them. And the fact that they waited 5 years to reach out was going to take more reasons than shame. And as a father, he didn't understand how they could ignore their daughter for years, or only get back in touch when we had kids. My dad snapped that he wasn't going to take this from a cushy, a slur meaning dark-skinned. My mother immediately tried to run damage control, but I ended the call. They have since messaged me several times trying to explain that calling my husband a racial slur wasn't indicative of a racist attitude, and he wouldn't have said that in front of the kids, so they should still get to meet them. I spent 5 years wondering how they were so offended by me marrying my boss that it earned no contact for half a decade. Turns out, they're just racist. It's almost nice to find out. If it was just the boss thing, I would have sympathy for them, and we might even be able to reconcile. But with this, it's now just a question of if I'm going to knowingly expose my mixed-race children to a couple of racists, which I am obviously not going to do. Racism is cringe. Racism is illegal, and as a matter of fact, I have canceled racism on Twitter as of 5 minutes ago. Check it out for yourselves. You are welcome, people. But on a more serious note, I think we all know here that racism is bad, but the fact that the dad slipped out a racial slur towards the husband and then said, well, I didn't really mean it anyway, can I see the grandkids anyway? Like, bro, what? You just pulled a racism, and you think give me grandkids is the appropriate reaction or response? No, you pulled a racism, a level 10 racism, and you just used a slur that I've never heard of before, by the way. But anyway, guys, I'm not even gonna ask what you think because I think we all know racism is bad. Next story. Story number 2. Am I the a-hole 38M for cutting back on my work to prove a point to my wife 30F? My wife is usually an angel of a woman, but has recently gotten into a friendship with a woman whom I personally believe is a bad influence on her. Not in a patronizing way, but more of a lay down with dogs, get up with fleas type of situation. I never said anything about her childishness or her very radical misandry because frankly, it doesn't affect me. Until it did. A few months ago, my wife began pressuring me to do more around the house. Before I get an instant "you're the a-hole," we already split chores and childcare. Admittedly, she had a bigger cut than I do because she is a stay-at-home mother, but I do most of the cooking, breakfasts, and dinners. Lunch is her responsibility for her and the boys, though. I take out the garbage, and I do laundry, and I deep clean the bathrooms once a week. I do also help with our boys' homework and such. She insists that I'm not doing enough, and that I should be doing more around the house. I tried having discussions with her, asking what she expected from me, namely all chores and child rearing should be my duty, it seems, and for months, it seemed to be going nowhere. She used the D word, divorce, more than once when speaking on this, which felt manipulative. It boiled over when we were out with friends one night, and she began talking about how I never helped out, and how I use her as a house slave, her words. I will admit I saw red. The next part is where I may be the a-hole. I didn't say anything that night, but the next day, I asked my boss to be given reduced hours for the next little bit, due to stress. And I took over everything in the house. I cooked breakfast and made lunch for the boys before I drove them to school. I cleaned the house top to bottom. I did every dish we had twice and so on. My wife was blindingly happy and bragged to her friend that she finally had me worn in. She didn't lift a finger for around a month. Then she began asking why we never went on dates anymore and complaining that she wanted to get her nails done as they were growing in. I explained that I had to take that out of our budget so we could continue to afford everything else, but we could absolutely have a movie night in, and I could paint her nails for her. She was unhappy with that solution, so I asked her if she would want to get a part-time job to pay for either's luxuries, and you would have thought I asked if she wanted to join a cult. She then asked if I could just pick up more shifts at work to cover her other expenses, and used the phrase, "be a man," which I found more than a little insulting. I then asked her if she would be willing to go back to splitting the chores and such, which is when she began to catch on that the two were related. She yelled at me that I was being a manipulative a-hole for doing this, and even claimed it was financial A-word. I stood strong for a while, but now I am questioning my methods, because even I feel what I did was a bit underhanded. So, am I the a-hole? Here are some relevant comments. A lot of users asked, why are you still with her when she treats you like that? I love her with everything I got. She's an excellent mother, and honestly, before she met this friend, we were both blissfully happy to the best of my knowledge. How did she suddenly notice that she wasn't getting her nails done or going out on dates? Did you block the credit card from everything but the grocery store? No. For one, she has her own card, though we do only have one bank account. I set her nail and hair appointments for her because she hates making phone calls, and she asked why I didn't take her out anymore. She could have spent from the card without saying anything, I suppose, but upon budgeting, we would have been in trouble if $300+ was gone from a night out with friends. Then OP elaborated more about his wife and their relationship. She had always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, even before we got together. I try not to say this part because while her 2 boys are not mine biologically, they are my sons. But being a single mother was incredibly taxing for her because working in the public was too much. I had a bit of experience being a single father myself. I have a son of my own, but I was looking to advance my career and was more than happy to take over the bills for a lessened load at home. OP, you are paying to raise another man's children. I do not like this comment. Those are my kids, no one else's, and regardless of what happens with their mother ever, I hope that those boys know that. Then OP elaborated more about how things have changed. Oh god, I can tell you, but it may be a bit mundane. When we first got married, she would give me shoulder and back massages every day after work and have my favorite music playing when I opened the door, even though she hates bluegrass. She would make my coffee while I was getting dressed. She made sure to pick up extra crunchy peanut butter from the store, even though I'm the only person who likes it. We would have movie night twice a week with the kids and a date night to ourselves once a week. I have always had trouble sleeping, and I don't want to take pills for it, so she always had the bed ready for me, a heating pad already turned on, and my pajamas on the bed. She would run her fingers through my hair until I fell asleep and would wake me up herself instead of the alarm because she knew it put me in a better mood. None of which I asked for. She's a good wife and wanted to because she knew that's what I liked, and she did it. She hasn't done a 180. Some of this is still true. At least it was until I cut down my hours. That was really when she stopped doing anything at all. And right now she's pissed, so I'm on the couch, awake and regretful. Personally, I think she's stubborn. I don't think she even really wants it. She just wants to prove that I would do it if she asks. She has had a troubled history with men, and that's why I tend to be forgiving when things do happen. OP, are you able to elaborate on the troubled history with men comment? It's not something I'm comfortable talking about, but believe me when I say what happened was not her fault. Update post. How do I, 38M, explain to and help my sons understand that their mother, 30F, is going to rehab? I have never been in a situation like this. I am a former addict myself, but I didn't have children then. The gist of it is that my wife and I recently had a blowout argument where she admitted to using 2 substances for several months and has agreed to get checked into rehab, which we are currently setting up now. How the hell do I bring this up to them without them being judgmental or hateful to their mother? Or worse, falling into the same mental space I'm in. I don't want to lie to them, which is what my wife wants, but I'm failing to see an alternative that won't destroy them or the respect they have for their mother. I am swimming blind here, and I have barely slept since this all came out. Any and all advice is appreciated. Thank you in advance. Here are some more relevant comments. I think it depends. What was she taking? Clonopine and Adipex that she was buying from her friend. She also admitted to having tried coke and several other prescription narcotics, but those were the only 2 she did often. OP, was this the friend that turned her onto radical misandry? Yes, though it's come to light that it wasn't misandry she was being taught, but flagrant drug usage. I have told her that she goes no contact with this friend or else she will be facing divorce along with everything else. OP, how old are the kids? 9, 12, and 14. Update post 2. I yelled at my wife. I was driving my wife to the rehabilitation center we decided on. On the way, she was screaming at me about how she can't believe I'm humiliating her like this, explaining what was happening to the boys, and making her message her dealer/friend that they would not be hanging out or using together anymore. About how she doesn't want to go, and that I am a controlling monster, and how threatening her with divorce and taking primary custody of the boys was too far, and I was insane, and I just took it, and took it, and took it until I just couldn't. And I screamed at her. I screamed that the woman I met would have rather died than have a pillhead junkie around her sons, and how she disgusted me, and that I don't know if she knew how much I was considering leaving her, not because of the addiction, but the way she was freaking acting. Like she hadn't brought drugs into our home. Around me, a former addict myself, and around our boys. That I am beginning to hate her for doing that. That she was becoming exactly what she always cried about her mother being. And that she was lucky I was here to see it before what happened to her happened to her sons. It makes me sick to say, but watching it sink in just how far she had spiraled felt good. Watching her realize that her actions have consequences was nice. She yelled a few more times that I was an abusive a-hole or whatever, but she was still crying, so I felt her heart wasn't in it. I plan on speaking to a lawyer. I don't want to divorce her, but I don't know how healthy our relationship could be after this. I know yelling like that was wrong, but I don't feel bad, and that is the part that makes me think that maybe I shouldn't be married to her anymore, for her sake and my own. I don't know what else to do, and I'm so pissed that she detonated C4 in every bit of our life. I believe I'm going to have to divorce her, and it's wrecking me. I don't want to. I still love her, but I don't know if I trust myself around her, and also not to use myself. I have been closer to relapsing this week than I have ever been. Update post number 3. She was cheating. Before you read, please know that this is a vent post. I normally would never be like this, but I am beyond okay and need to get this poison out of my head before I go anywhere else with it. She was freaking cheating. The drug-dealing friend sent me a freaking video of her dancing and grinding on this ugly, hick-looking SOB, and I am destroyed. The boys are staying with my mother for a few days, and I'm taking the next week off work. I am so done. I have never been so angry in my life. And the friend was so smug sending it. In case you don't realize, you're replaceable to her. Well, the free ride stops here. I hope she can get on Medicaid for her Suboxone. I'm done. I saved the video immediately, and I'm going to see a lawyer ASAP. I can't tell anyone yet because I want to do this right now. I am thankful as hell my parents insisted on a prenup with what I thought at the time was an inhumane cheating clause. Never have I been cheated on before, and I feel like tearing my hair out. I genuinely never thought she would turn out to be such a scummy POS. I cannot handle this. I am not physically able to handle this. I haven't been able to keep food down, and I drank for the first time in over a decade last night. Then I woke up and had to pour the rest down the drain because I am about to spiral, and my boys don't need both mom and dad in rehab right now. I am so close to losing my mind. Also, believe what you want, but stop sending me private messages about how I should take down the posts or that posting about my relationship with my wife is wrong. Please leave me be. It will not work. This is the only place I can talk about this. And for those curious about the kid situation and who is related to who, 2 of my 3 sons are stepsons, but I adopted them. They never had a father due to their biological dad being an absolutely terrible person. My biological son is the youngest and was born to a girlfriend who is not in the picture and doesn't want to be. My sons are 9, 12, and 14. She had 2 jobs when I met her, though they were both terrible jobs, and I had been looking into finding her a better one. When it comes to the dealer, she was getting the drugs from her friend who was a woman, and a few of the men who she cheated with. Update post 4. My soon-to-be ex-wife is in the hospital after an attempt at taking her own life, and I feel like a monster. I have been working on filing for divorce while she's in rehab, not just for the cheating, but because with that on top of everything else, and myself nearly sinking back into my own addiction due to the stress of the situation, I couldn't stand to even think of her anymore. And there's no healthy relationship that has room for that mindset. I honestly didn't want to be in a room with her again, to try mediation or counseling due to the fact that the last time I was alone with her, I raised my voice. And at the time, even felt she deserved it. I of course now know that me doing that was terrible and could be considered abuse, yet another reason I should not be in a relationship with this woman. I moved all of her belongings to our guest room, minus the pills I found hidden in her bedside table. I took pictures of them and then flushed them down the toilet. I also removed her from my bank account and credit cards. I spoke to my boys, explaining the situation without demonizing their mother to the best of my ability, and they seemed to understand I have no intention of abandoning them, and blood or not, they were my sons. Then she came home. The boys were and still are away at camp, a birthday present paid for by my mother. She was quiet, eyes on the ground after the moment I picked her up at the facility all the way home. Once we got home, I led her to the guest room silently and she didn't take it well, crying before she could even take the first step. Throughout the next couple of weeks, I let her get settled, and though I stayed carefully neutral, I know she could tell something was coming. But I wanted to be as fair as possible and try to let her get used to being out before I said anything, as that was one thing I myself hated about when I left rehab. Everything was flying at me so fast, I didn't have time to breathe. Finally, I asked her to sit on the couch and I began explaining to her that I do not believe I can continue being married to her, and that I want a divorce. I should have known her reaction was all wrong. She didn't say anything at all. She only nodded and cried quietly as I spoke. I explained that I did not intend to hurt her, but I could not be married to her anymore, and that maybe both of us should focus on being the best parents we can be. I told her I had no intentions of kicking her out, and that because of our prenup, the divorce should be cut and dry, and she should be safe to begin looking for employment now, and once she has a job, I will help her find an apartment. At this, she stood and walked to her room. I let her because I thought she must have been overwhelmed and this talk could wait. She didn't come out at dinner time, and I weighed whether I should leave her alone or not. Eventually, I decided to knock on the door and ask if she was hungry. Long story short, she had smuggled pills into my house somehow, or she had a stash I was unaware of and had an overdose, and was dead for several minutes in the ambulance. And she is now in a medically induced coma because the doctors aren't sure exactly how much damage she's done to her brain. I feel like an absolute monster, like I am the scum of the earth. Like I should have just said nothing. Like I should have just dealt with it. Just held it in and stayed. I am responsible for this, and it kills me. I may not have the same love for her as I did, but I do feel so very sorry for everything she's been through. It's killing me. I haven't told my sons yet, and I am debating waiting until they're back from camp, so they can have a little more time without this on their minds, on top of everything else.
Here are some more relevant comments. OP, where's her family?
Not my story to tell, but she doesn't have much family alive, and the ones who are, she's no contact with. She has other friends, but I don't know which ones were enabling her. They all know what's going on. I messaged all her friends, except the dealer, though she knows now I know from messages she sent me. She hasn't shown up to the hospital though, because she thinks I would throw her out, which I would be tempted to do so, to be entirely honest. A couple of her other friends visit all the time. As for her mother, she is no contact with her, ironically because of her mother's addiction and bad treatment of her. The rest constantly insisted she should see her mother and 2 times even took the boys to her mother's house without her permission.
Then OP elaborated on why he started the divorce at this point.
I wanted to do it while she was in rehab, but my therapist told me to reconsider, so I did. I was so angry when I found out about the cheating. I wanted to take her belongings to her dealer's house and leave them there, but I knew that was wrong. I knew that once my anger wore off, I would regret it. So now all I want is to get the divorce started and over with as soon as possible, so that I can try to begin picking up the pieces of my life and move on. On top of that, I didn't want to lead her on, and I could tell that she knew something was coming because I can't stand her touching me anymore. It makes me physically ill. If I had known she was going to try and take her life, I could have closed my eyes and grit my teeth and let her do whatever. But honestly, even now, after what she did, I know that isn't feasible for me. I still found myself wanting to start fights, to yell, and I know that I am not a strong enough person to be in a relationship with someone who hurt me that much, who disrespected me, my home, and my children that much, who took my own past experiences with drugs into account so little that she brought them into my home, directly under the nose of myself and my children, pun intended. This is as much kindness as I can afford to extend to her anymore for my own mental health's sake. Small update. Not awake yet. I took the advice of some of the commenters and went to go get my boys to see if they wanted to see their mother. I explained the situation to the best of my abilities, age appropriately, and asked if they wanted to see her. They all agreed to see her eventually, but the eldest only wanted to go to support his brothers. I am concerned about the anger he is building towards his mom, and I do intend to talk to him about it, but I also don't want to tell him how to feel or tell him that his feelings are bad and wrong. I was already working on trying to get them into therapy, but I'm going to expedite that. As for the cheating, there have been multiple pictures and videos of her dancing and being inappropriate with men since the last post. I haven't blocked the friend because she sent me a large amount of proof of infidelity for the divorce. And for those confused, yes, the hick she was dancing on was a man. I do know that trauma is the gateway to addiction, as I am an addict and my own CSA from my uncle and general abuse from both my parents. We went to counseling during my rehab, and our relationship is much better now, but growing up was very bad. I can't say I know what made her start using, but I can say I know she had a rough childhood and even worse teen years. Also, some of you added regardless of sexual identity. If I found out my wife was engaging in sexual acts with women, would I consider it cheating as well? She was doing other sexually inappropriate things, but no, I didn't get any straight up sex tapes, but I would rather not get into it further, but I think you can catch my drift. Final update. My wife is dead. My wife is dead. I haven't updated in a while and I am sorry, but I'm sure you can guess why I wasn't feeling up to it. I know that everyone said that she was manipulating me or trying to make me stay with her, but honestly, even if that was the case, it didn't matter. Because the moment she woke up, we both started crying and talking, and we didn't stop for days. She went back into rehab for a little while, came out, and we did both couples and solo therapy for both of us. She seemed happy, she seemed better, and I hoped that the crazy was over, that we would just be happy again. I didn't update back then because frankly, I was scared how everyone would react. I don't do well at getting yelled at. She promised me that if anything happened, if there was anything she needed to talk to me about, she wouldn't hesitate. Everything was going well, and now when I ask myself if there were signs she would go back or that she never stopped, the answer is no. Nothing, except the fact that she had an overdose at her friend's house while I was working and died on her couch. The friend didn't even want to call an ambulance. Her boyfriend had convinced her to. I don't think either of them were arrested that day, but I know from the paper she was picked up a couple of months ago for selling. Everyone kept telling me to go to the police, and maybe I should have. But frankly, with the way the police act, it wouldn't do much good. Since then, I have been drifting terribly. I took up smoking again, something I quit before I got married because she hated the smell. I hate it now too. The smell, I mean, but the hand to mouth is nice. My sons are in therapy and are taking the loss as well as they could be expected to. The younger two talk about her a lot, but the eldest is mostly angry. I'm thankful, though, that he doesn't seem to want to say things to his brothers about it, but I always let him tell me anything he's thinking, even when it breaks my heart. I know that maybe everyone here has an idea of who my wife was, but one thing you could never deny was how much she loved our boys. They were her pride and joy, absolutely everything to her. I miss her. I miss her so much. It feels like a death rattle to breathe. There's never music when I get home anymore, and I hate it. I hate the quiet so much that some days before I even go inside, I sit in the car and just cry because I know she won't be there. I haven't even been able to clean out her side of the bathroom yet. It hurts too much to think about getting rid of her perfume or her toothbrush. I haven't felt like writing for obvious reasons, but there's something that feels important now, so I will. Valentine's Day is tomorrow. On the way home from work recently, I caught myself calculating flower prices before I remembered that I have no one to give them to, unless I put them on her grave. I remember being pissed off at how expensive roses were getting, and now that seems so silly. I just wanted to say, if you have someone you love, please cherish them. Do something extra nice for the person you love on Valentine's Day, for my sake. Nothing crazy, but maybe you can dance around the living room to your song or read to each other. Something soft or good to let them know you're real and really, really there. I know that's so cliche and corny, and if Alex were here right now, she would actively bully me, but sadly, the old geezers were right. Life is short. Isn't that a kick in the ass?
Then OP elaborated in the comment section, starting with smoking.
I know I should quit smoking. I don't do it in the house because the smell really does make me sick after a while. I only really do it at night or in the early mornings. I'm considering getting one of those flavored air ones that are going around with no smoke or whatever so I can keep the hand-to-mouth thing, which I like a lot and missed. Not the best compromise, but it's something.
Then a lot of people in the comment section suggested widow support on Reddit.
I might, honestly. Thank you. Any kind of emotional support right now is going to be welcome. It's hard for me to be emotional around my boys because I hate to make them feel like they're ever in a position where they need to take care of me. Poor kids have been through enough without me losing it, but I've been such a mess that they've caught me crying in my car more often than I'd like. Not to imply that I refuse to cry around them at all, but just, I hate them seeing exactly how much of a wreck I am.
OP, are you in therapy?
I am in therapy, but it's a long process, especially considering I'm a former addict myself. The entire situation has aged me a decade and a year.
OP, as someone whose dad went through similar stuff, cry in front of them. It's okay.
I can try, it just always makes me feel so guilty. I know I shouldn't, but I always just think to myself, what are you doing? You're meant to be taking care of them, not the other way around. I hate to think that they ever feel the need to walk on eggshells around me because I'm too much of a wreck to handle something. I know that's a bad answer, but it's true. It's just always come around to the face that those are my boys and I am their dad. I am supposed to be stronger than this for them. And I don't mean to imply that crying is weak or wrong. I just don't know how to turn "it's okay to cry" into "it's okay for me to cry" in my head. Then, of course, I mostly mean now, after everything. At the funeral, there was no helping it, and for the first few days after that, I was such a mess. My parents came to stay with us because they were concerned I wasn't sleeping.
Yeah, you can't help your feelings, OP, but I am sure your sons have feelings, and when they see you not exhibiting those same feelings, they may think that those feelings are wrong, but that could be my own baggage. Do what you need to for yourself, my dude, but that just stood out to me.
Thank you. Genuinely, I will keep that in mind. I hadn't fully considered that, if I'm being honest, but I can work on it.
Then OP gave one last thought in the comment section.
Not defending her is so hard for me, but that was the first thing my therapist told me when I asked about my sons. That defending her to them wasn't going to help, and that all I could do was let them talk. My eldest is the only one who really rages about it, but the younger two will eventually, I'm sure. I am also angry in this helpless kind of way that hurts so bad I can't stand to think about it, because if she just talked to me, I could have helped her, and she would still be here. I am a former addict myself, and I know I made so many mistakes with my wife, but I swear it was like everything was so good again. We slept in the same bed again and had dates. Everything in my mind just wants to scream and beg to know why she would do this, and I can't. I hate it so much because I tried so very hard not to love her anymore when she was alive, and it didn't work then. I don't see myself doing any better now that she's gone. And it hurts even worse because when other people are mad or say negative things, I still want to defend her, to explain every little reason she had and why it wasn't all her fault. But in the end, it doesn't even matter if I do, because she's gone. She won't be here to reap the benefits of that defense, or even to care that I changed minds. She won't be here to be respected or disrespected. It feels pointless, but I still want to, and it makes me feel like a freaking moron.
So we only had 2 stories today, one about a wife and her racist parents, and then a story in 5 parts. The first part, I thought, oh wow, this is just the female equivalent of discovering Andrew Tate or something, and then it got worse, and then it got a lot worse, and then worse again, and then it got somewhat better, and then she unfortunately passed away. I'm not going to trash talk anybody here. I'm not going to say who's right or who's wrong. If you guys want to discuss that, feel free to, but I don't feel like touching on it because, I don't feel like anyone needs that in this story. Like, the individuals, I don't feel like they need to be told, oh, your wife was in the wrong. I don't think OP needs to be told right now, oh, you're a bad person or whatever. I think he needs to be told, hey, it's going to be all right if you can work through it. And it's tough. Now he is a single parent, and he's got 3 kids, and he's struggling, and he's smoking again, and he picked up drinking like he said he hadn't done in a decade, and hopefully he doesn't relapse. But to try and end things on a positive note, as I always try to do, I will take the point that he said about finding someone that you love and telling them that you love them, showing that you love them. It doesn't even need to be your partner. It can be a friend, it can be your partner, a parent, a child, a relative, a neighbor if you want it to be. Just show people that you love them, right? It's so exhausting being angry all the time. Like, there's no point. Personally, I don't have room for hatred in my heart 24/7. It hurts, and I don't want that. So guys, I love you, fellow viewers, and I hope you find someone else to love. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye!